Welcome to Procrastination and Empowerment, a weekly talk. What if you're not behind? Breaking free from the timeline trap. I want to start with a question that many listening have maybe whispered to themselves at some point. Am I behind? Behind in your career, behind in your business, behind in your relationships, money, purpose, health, behind where you thought you'd be by now. Let me see how many people think that. If you want to put it in the chat or write a comment. How many of you have ever looked at someone else's life online and thought, wow, I should be further along by now? How many of you have ever felt like you're running out of time, even though no one actually told you you were on a deadline? And how many of you feel like you're constantly rushing, not because you want to go faster, but because you're terrified of being too late? Look around. You're not the only one. We live in a world obsessed with timelines. You should have a career sorted by 25. You should be financially stable by 30. You should know your purpose by 35. You should have your whole life figured out yesterday. Somewhere along the way, success stopped being personal and it became a race to nowhere. Because here's the truth no one tells you. There is no universal timeline. There is no finish line. There is no behind. But the lie that you're behind does something devastating. It creates an internal pressure cooker. You can't celebrate your progress because you're comparing it to somebody else's chapter. You can't rest because resting feels like falling even further behind. You can't be present because you're always chasing someday. And worst of all, you start believing that the life you have is less valuable because it doesn't look like the timeline you were handed. Let me ask you one more question. When did you first decide you were behind? Was it after scrolling Instagram? After watching someone your age hit certain milestones? After listening to family expectations? Or after comparing your reality to someone else's highlight reel? Rot in my eye. Oh, there we go. Some of you have been running for years, not toward your purpose, but away from the fear of being behind. But what if you're not behind at all? What if nothing has gone wrong? What if every twist, delay, detour, setback, pause, or redirection was part of your timing, not a punishment for missing someone else's? What if your life is not late? It's simply layered. What if you are exactly where you're meant to be for who you are becoming next? Because here's a radical idea. You can't be behind in a life that is unfolding in your timing. So let me say that again because it's important. You can't be behind in a life that is unfolding in your timing. Let that land. You are not behind. You are becoming who you're meant to be. But to understand why we feel behind, why we panic, compare, rush, and pressure ourselves, we need to look at the foundation of it. Because this belief didn't start with you, it was inherited, conditioned even, handed to you. Which brings us to the next part of this conversation. Where the timeline trap comes from. If we're going to break free from the feeling of behind, We need to understand who made these timelines in the first place. Who decided what on time means? Who benefits from us rushing? Who taught us that life has deadlines? In the next section, we're going to dismantle the source of the timeline trap. And when you see where it comes from, you'll realise it never belonged to you at all. To understand why so many of us feel behind, we have to look at where that belief began, because no one is born thinking they're late. Babies don't compare themselves. Children don't question their pace. Nature does not rush. At some point, though, we learned that life has deadlines. When you think about being behind, whose voice do you actually hear? Is it a parent, a teacher, a boss, a partner or an ex-partner, your culture, your social circle, or someone online who doesn't even know you? Let's break this down, because the timeline trap is built from layers of conditioning. The first part is family and cultural conditioning. Most of us were raised with invisible timelines. By your 20s, you should have a career. By your 30s, you should settle down. By your 40s, you should have achieved stability. And by your 50s, you should have it all figured out. So how many people does that sound familiar to? Who here can remember a moment when someone implied you were late to something? Relationships, children, career, maturity, success. I can remember people, once I got married, people saying, when are you going to have children? When are you going to have children? When are you going to have children? Yeah. Those comments plant seeds. They tell you that there is only one correct place, one right timeline, one acceptable sequence of life milestones. But whose timeline was it? Yours or theirs? The second is school and achievement programming. School teaches us that there's one right grade, as in right at the top, one right answer, one right place. If you fall behind, you may get punished. If you get ahead, you may get rewarded. From a young age, we learn that being on track matters more than being in tune. You learn comparison, competition, pressure, urgency, not presence, not individuality, not timing, and not alignment. The third one is corporate conditioning. Once we're out of school and into a job, success equals speed. The workplace reinforces the idea that faster is better, more is better, early is better. Achievement equals value. So, anyone, have you ever felt behind at work, even when you were doing your absolute best? And that's because corporate culture measures humans like metrics, KPIs, deadlines, milestones, and promotions. It treats a whole complex human like a machine that must constantly keep up. Now, these days, number 4 is social media, comparison on steroids. So we open Instagram or Facebook or whatever is your favorite social media, and suddenly you see someone younger than you with a bigger business, someone your age buying a massively big home, someone who got success early, or someone achieving in weeks what took you years. And of course, they haven't actually achieved it in weeks. There's probably years before learning a whole lot of stuff before they had success. It just looks that way. But here's what we forget. We compare our internal timeline to someone else's highlight reel. Has social media ever made you feel behind in a life you were perfectly happy with 10 minutes earlier? We're comparing different backgrounds, privileges, chapters, callings, seasons, struggles, purposes, as if they're the same journey, and they are not. So the fifth one is the pressure to catch up. All of these influences create one dangerous belief. I'm behind, so I need to rush. This pressure erases your joy. It sabotages your decision making. It disconnects you from the truth, and most importantly, from your truth. It turns your life into a race you never signed up for. But here's the reality. You cannot be behind on a timeline that was never yours. You are not late. You are not slow. You are not behind. You are on your timeline, the only one that ever mattered. But before we talk about liberation, we need to be honest about the cost, because believing you're behind has consequences, and they are deep ones. In section 3, we're going to look at the cost of believing you're behind. So now that we understand where the timeline trap comes from and all the different places it's landing, let's talk about what it does to you, because this belief is not harmless. It affects your confidence, your decisions, your relationships, your mental health, and your identity. So in the next section, we'll explore the real cost of believing you're behind and why this belief keeps so many brilliant, capable people stuck, anxious, and disconnected from their own magic. Okay. So now that we understand where the timeline trap comes from, we need to talk about something most people never pause long enough to acknowledge: the cost. Because believing you're behind doesn't just create stress, it alters the way you live your life. Let's explore what it's really stealing from you. So the first is the emotional cost, which can be chronic anxiety and inner panic. Have you ever woken up already feeling like you're losing a race you never agreed to run? That rushing energy, a constant internal pressure, the fear of wasting time, that's the emotional tax of believing you're behind. And it creates anxiety, restlessness, hypervigilance, and an inability to be present. Instead of enjoying your life, you are measuring it. And instead of trusting your timing, you are doubting your pace. So the second is the creative cost, decisions made from fear and not alignment. When you think you're behind, you don't make empowered decisions. You make panic decisions. Saying yes to things you don't want. Starting projects out of fear, not desire. Rushing into jobs, relationships, and business ideas. Trying to catch up instead of asking yourself what you really want. So what have you said yes to that wasn't aligned, simply because you thought you were late? This is how dreams become detours. And this is how purpose gets buried under pressure. So the third is relationship costs and disconnection from others and from yourself. When you believe you're behind, you live in comparison mode. And comparison creates resentment, envy, insecurity, and disconnection. Not because you're a bad person, but because you were never meant to measure your life against anyone else's. But you also disconnect from yourself. You stop celebrating your progress. You stop trusting your timing. You stop listening to your intuition, and you disconnect from your joy. You become so future focused that you forget how to live now. So the fourth one is the identity cost. You become someone you don't even recognize anymore. And this is the hardest part. When you believe you're behind, you stop being who you are and start becoming who you think you should be. You abandon your own timing to chase someone else's timeline. You abandon your own path to run someone else's race. And I know I've done that one definitely more than once. You abandon your own desires to meet someone else's expectations. It's not just exhausting, it's heartbreaking because you aren't behind. You're simply misaligned with your truth. So let's do a visualization and release the feeling of being behind. So I want to give you a moment to reset your subconscious and reconnect to yourself. So if it feels comfortable, gently close your eyes or just soften your gaze and start taking in a slow, deep breath and exhale fully. And take in another slow breath and exhale fully. Now imagine yourself standing on a racetrack. You're surrounded by people sprinting in every direction, all at different speeds, different starting points, and different finishing lines. Notice the noise, the pressure, the chaos. This is what it feels like to live in the belief, I'm behind. Now imagine stepping off the racetrack. As you step away, the noise gets quieter. The rushing energy fades. Your heartbeat slows. Now you find yourself on a quiet path, your path. It's peaceful, it's open, it's unfolding just for you. There is no one ahead of you, there is no one behind you, there is only your pace. And as you walk this path, imagine hearing these words, you are not late. You are exactly on time for your life. Feel how your body responds to that truth. Now take a slow breath in and breathe out fully. And another slow breath in and breathe out fully. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. And if you want to, take a couple of minutes to write some notes down of things that popped up for you while you were going through that visualization. So that path you saw, that's your real timeline. Not the racetrack, not the competition, not the pressure. You were never meant to sprint through life. You were meant to live it. But here's the most important part. You're not late, you're in season. The reason you're not behind is because life does not operate on a single, rigid, universal timeline. Life is seasonal. Life is cyclical. Life blooms differently for each person. And in the next section, we're going to talk about a truth that sets people free. You are not late, you're in season, and your season is right on time. So let me offer you a truth that has brought people to tears because it shifts their entire relationship with time. You're not late, you're in season. Let's start with a few questions to feel into this. Who here has ever looked at someone else's life and thought, why hasn't that happened for me yet? Let me repeat that in case you want to write these ones down. Who here has ever looked at someone else's life and thought, why hasn't that happened for me yet? Who here has ever felt like everyone else was blooming while you were somehow falling behind? And who here has felt pressure that came not from your inner wisdom, but from watching someone else's timeline? You are not alone. But here's something important. In nature, nothing blooms all year round. Nothing is on schedule, and nothing tries to hurry. A seed isn't behind because it hasn't sprouted yet. A rose isn't wrong if it blooms in May while the tulip blooms in March. A tree isn't a failure because it takes decades to bear fruit. Nature doesn't rush, and nature doesn't doubt its timing. Everything unfolds in its season, and so do you. You have been taught to believe life is a straight line. Childhood, education, career, marriage, house, kids, success, happiness. But life is not a conveyor belt. It is a series of seasons. Seasons of growth, rest, expansion, rebuilding, blooming, integration, preparation, and redirection. And your season is not meant to match someone else's. What if the season you call being behind is actually a season of preparation? What if what you see as delay is actually timing, rearranging life on your behalf? What if nothing has gone wrong? You're simply underground, growing roots, strengthening, preparing for a powerful bloom. When you believe you're behind, you resist your season. But when you believe you're in season, you relax into your life. You just take some water. Let's do another quick visualization. If you're comfortable, place your feet on the floor. Take a slow breath in. Soften your shoulders. And when you're ready, close your eyes. Imagine you're standing in a garden. To your left is a flower already in full bloom, bright, open, radiant. To your right is new green growth, just starting to rise through the soil. And right in front of you is a perfectly planted seed. Not failing, not late, not broken. Just in a different stage. Now imagine hearing these words. You are not the flower on the left. You are not the sprout on the right. You are your own season. So take another deep breath in and out, and gradually open your eyes again. If you truly believed fully and deeply that you are in season, how would your energy shift? What decisions would you stop rushing? What pressure would you release? What would you trust more deeply? Because here's the truth. You can't be behind on a timeline that was never meant for you. You are exactly where you need to be for who you are becoming next. Now, the real question becomes, if you're not behind, how do you stop living like you are? How do you let go of the rushing, the comparison, the panic, the pressure, and the constant sense of not enough yet? How do you step out of the race and step back into your rhythm? In the next section, we're going to break it down into practical, simple steps so you can stop chasing timelines and start living your life from grounded confidence and trust. So now that we've uncovered the lie and you've felt the truth that you're not behind, the next question becomes, how do you actually live like someone who is not behind? Because it's totally unfamiliar to us. Knowing the truth intellectually is one thing, embodying it is another. So let's walk through the steps that free you from the timeline trap. And as we go through these, I want you to reflect honestly and gently. Where do you still rush? Where do you still compare? Where do you still pressure yourself to be somewhere else? So the first thing is unsubscribe from everyone else's timeline. Whose timeline are you living on right now? Is it your parents? Because so many of us have had parents who've had directions that we were supposed to head in. I know I was supposed to be a housewife. That never worked out terribly well. Or is it societies or corporate culture? Or is it something from social media? You cannot live a life that's yours if you're following a timeline that isn't. A powerful question to ask yourself: do I actually want what I think I'm behind on? Let me repeat that because this is important. Do I actually want what I think I'm behind on? You may discover you don't even want the thing you're rushing towards. When you really stop and take notice and think about it quietly, you may find that it's totally away from what you want and what your dream is. Unsubscribe from everything that is not you. The second thing is replace should with choose. The word should is the vocabulary of pressure and comparison. I should be further along. I should have figured this out. I should be making more money by now, or should be making money by now. So where in your life do you feel ruled by shoulds? I know trying to make my business work, I've totally had the shoulds everywhere. Now, I want you to reframe this and replace I should with I choose, or I'm not choosing that right now. It instantly puts you back in power. So you can try like I choose to be further along, or I choose not to be further along right now. I choose to work on figuring this out. I choose to start making money, or I choose to increase the amount of money I'm making. It gives you a different outlook. It's not like weighing you down or pressuring you. It's giving you space. And when you're making a choice, there's always the possibility of changing your mind, of looking how it's going and making a different choice. Whereas should is pushing you down in the one direction. So the third one is redefine what on track means. Most people feel behind because they're measuring themselves against age, milestones, timelines, and other people's achievements. But what if on track simply meant aligned with who I am becoming? Aligned with who I am becoming. Imagine asking that instead of, am I ahead or behind? If alignment, not speed, were the metric or measurement, how differently would you feel right now? Let me say that again. If alignment and not speed were the measurement, how differently would you feel right now? So the fourth is do a comparison detox. Comparison is the fuel of the timeline trap. Who here has ever felt completely fine with your life until you opened Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is you're looking at? Comparison isn't insight. Comparison is distraction. You don't need to delete everything. You just need to change how you consume. Unfollow accounts that trigger scarcity. Stop tracking people you're competing with. Add accounts that inspire presence, not pressure. You can't run your race if you're staring at someone else's lane. Let me say that again. You can't run your race if you're staring at someone else's lane. So the fifth thing is practice presence over panic. The timeline trap lives in one place, the future. The pressure of not enough yet, running out of time, need to catch up. Presence dissolves panic. Here's a grounding question you can use anytime, and I will repeat it for you. What is the next right thing for me? Not the next fast thing. What is the next right thing for me? When you ask that, you stop rushing life and start receiving it. The sixth thing is trust you're not late, you're in preparation. Every pause, delay, setback, or detour in your life has shaped who you are. You didn't lose time, you gained wisdom. So think of something you thought came late in your life, but now you understand why it happened when it did. So think of what came to you late in life, or apparently late in life, but now you understand why it happened when it did. What comes to mind? So whatever it is, that's proof. Timing has always been working for you. So the seventh thing is celebrate micro wins instead of chasing big endings. I often talk about this, and I can't begin to stress how important it is, because this is the secret to changing your subconscious programming. People who think they're behind have a habit of dismissing their progress. Let's break that right now. Think about one thing you are proud of that you've done in the last 12 months. Let me read that again. One thing you are proud of you've done in the last 12 months. And if you need to, pause the recording and write something down, because it's important to actually acknowledge that there is something you're proud of for in the last 12 months. And really, this is something when you're doing a review, be it a daily review, weekly, monthly, quarterly, this is a question you can include in whatever review you're doing. One thing you are proud of that you've done in the day when you're reviewing at the end of your day, or if you're reviewing yesterday, it can make a huge difference to yourself. It's kind of like gratitude, but it's almost gratitude for you, gratitude for yourself, gratitude for your achievements, however small. And feel how your energy shifts when you think about that. That's what happens when you step out of the race and step back into your life. And that is what helps to change your subconscious and start to build a new definition of safety and allow you to move forward and take action that you need to take in your business. Breaking free from the timeline trap. Let me try that again. Breaking free from the timeline trap is not a one-time decision. It's an ongoing practice of choosing alignment over urgency, choosing presence over pressure, choosing your path over comparison with others, choosing trust over fear, and choosing who you are over who you're supposed to be. When you start doing that, something incredible happens. You stop chasing your life and you start living it. Which brings us to the final powerful part of today, arriving where you are. Because once you stop rushing, comparing, and pressuring yourself, you get to arrive. Arrive in your body, in your season, in your truth, in your timing, and in your life. In this closing section, we're going to bring everything together in one simple question. What if you're not behind and you never were? Let's close with the moment that brings you fully home to where you are. I want you to close with a simple but profound truth. You can't be behind in your own life. And that's a writer downer. You can't be behind in your own life. You can only be here, right now, in this moment, which is the only moment you can ever live in. And yet so many of us spend our entire lives mentally somewhere else, in a future we're racing toward, in a past we're trying to rewrite, in a fantasy timeline we think we should be on. But life doesn't happen in should. It doesn't happen in the race. It doesn't happen in comparison. Life happens in presence, in alignment, in arrival. So let me ask you something. One final reflective question. What becomes possible for you when you finally stop telling yourself you're behind? Truly think about it. If there was no rush, no pressure, no deadline, no comparison, no expectation, what version of you would emerge? The real you, the grounded you, the aligned you. The you that has been waiting underneath all the fear. Because the moment you stop running, you can finally feel your own truth. So place your hand over your heart for a moment. Feel your breath moving. Feel the ground supporting you. Feel your body existing in this single moment. Now whisper to yourself internally or softly out loud, I am here. I am enough. I am on time. Let that land and take another deep breath in. I am not behind. I am becoming who I am meant to be. I am exactly where I need to be. Everything in your life, every detour, every heartbreak, every delay, every redirection brought you to this moment of clarity. Not one step was wasted. Not one season was meaningless. Nothing is late. Nothing is missing. Nothing is wrong. You are arriving in your life, in your power, in your timing. You were never meant to sprint to your purpose. You were meant to grow into it. You were never meant to follow someone else's timeline. You were meant to create your own. You were never meant to be ahead or behind. You were meant to be aligned. Your life is not on a countdown. It is on a path. And you are not late. You are right on time. For you are becoming who you are meant to be, for the life that is unfolding, for the season you are stepping into next. You are not running out of time. You're finally arriving in your own. Thank you.